I did my refutation speech on Jonathan Linares' speech on embryonic stem cell research. And my main claim is that my opponents claim that investing in embryonic stem cell research that will yield greater results than anything else is not supported by his two supporting claims that say embryonic stem cell research is more effective in treating diseases and they help new drugs. One of the supporting claims was that embryonic stem cell research can test new drugs. Just because embryonic stem cell research can test new drugs doesn't mean that investment in embryonic stem cell research will produce greater results than any other type of research or embryonic stem cells. Adult stem cells can test new drugs too, and there are other ways to test new drugs, like studies when you use actual people or when you use animals. He says it would offer a potentially safer model for drug screening, and I don't think this is true because there is no way this is cheaper than other types of drug screening. The only site he actually cites is the National Institute of Health, and he keeps using it over and over again. And it's a reliable site, but it's the only one he has. And he doesn't have any evidence he doesn't have any statistical evidence. He just has quotes from the National Institute of Health. One of his other claim was embryonic stem cell research are more useful in treating diseases. He says that the way diseases can be treated is by using cell-based therapies. There are many ways to treat diseases other than cell-based therapies, so this doesn't really help his claim that embryonic stem cell research is the best way to go. He says that embryonic stem cell research can be used to transplant insulin-producing cells in diabetic patients, but adult stem cells can do this too, and so that doesn't help with his claim that embryonic stem cell research is better either. And he says the problem with adult stem cells is that it is difficult to obtain the right kind of cell and it's limited to growth. I'm not really sure what that means, but there's no evidence that points to his claim that, well, there's no evidence that supports his claim that says embryonic stem cell research is better than any other. So the only thing wrong with his speech was that he didn't have any statistical evidence or actually any evidence, and he kept citing the same source over and over again. And his two secondary claims didn't really support his main.
All right, well, the opening identifies who it is you're responding to. I think you kind of back into what the claims are instead of structuring them a little bit more distinctly. You do move to that first point with a label, and I thought that was okay. You make some counterclaims, though, but you don't provide any evidence for your counterclaims whatsoever. So even if there's a problem with the advocate's evidence, it comes from one source. The information seems to be a little vague or conclusionary in contrast to the information you're providing. I think it's going to be a little bit more convincing. A lot of the presses that you're giving are things that you could have said 10 seconds after he finished speaking and don't suggest that there's much development of any counterclaim on these points, just whatever occurred to you at the moment. And I think that there is good information. For instance, you mentioned adult stem cells at one point. There's information out there that talks about how adult stem cells have successfully been used to treat, in contrast to embryonic stem cells, and how we're so much further advanced in adult stem cell research than we are in embryonic stem cells, and that we have a combination of adult stem cells that can now be made pluripotent, and that eliminates the need for the embryonic stem cells, which carry with them some moral equivalent or moral evaluations that create problems for us. But it's as if none of those arguments exist, except that you just make the one claim about the adult stem cells. The transition, the second point, was okay. You claim that there are alternatives, but again, there's no proof on that particular point. Your main argument seems to be that the advocate's evidence is limited, and you kind of repeat that point in several places, and it may in fact be the case, but like I said, we're back to the same issue. In contrast to the information that you're providing, I think that it's certainly something to consider, as there's data there, at least some data. At the end, it sounds like you're offering a critique rather than a refutation of those particular arguments. All right, thank you. I just